so starting up here, we've got the next dash is looking at the use of drugs for aerobic performance. So erythropoietin, which is EPO, stimulates red blood cell production in the body, all right? So you take EPO, which is a peptide hormone, into the body, and it will tell your body, let's make more red blood cells, all right? Now, as somebody, if you remember all your stuff about sports med, remember if you acclimatize to a higher altitude place, that will stimulate more red blood cell production. You could sleep in a hyperbaric chamber, which we'll talk about in the next video actually, and that can stimulate red blood cell production. But the easiest way to do it is to take erythropoietin, all right? Now, athletes who have more red blood cells will perform significantly better aerobically, as they can transport greater amounts of oxygen around the body, okay? And nutrients, because we know that red blood cells carry nutrients and remove waste products around the body. And they can do so for extended periods, all right? So this is why like erythropoietin has a very, very high correlation with Tour de France winners over the years, okay? I can't remember the correct ratio, but they always drug test the Tour de France competitors. And there's like a significant amount of people over the years who have podium finishes have tested positive to erythropoietin, all right? Because that type of aerobic work, like extended aerobic work on a daily basis, ongoing, like day to day to day to day, you take erythropoietin, you are going to be miles ahead of the competition, literally aerobically, okay? So yeah, that's why it's banned. It's bad. You can also imagine that as a side effect, probably should have put side effects up there, I didn't put them in the notes. If you have more red blood cells in the body, that can actually lead to increased clotting, right? Because your blood's going to be thicker, which can then lead to, heart attack, stroke, etc. Right. So it's bad. Your next dash is looking at the use of drugs to mask other drugs, all right? So the first one we're looking at here is diuretics. Now you probably have heard this word before. Diuretics, very simply, reduce the amount of fluid in the body by stimulating urine production, all right? So what it does, you take a diuretic, it tells your body to produce more urine, but your body just can't magically get water from anywhere. It doesn't just like seep through your skin, so it takes it from all of your cells, okay? Your brain, your heart, your lungs, your skeletal muscle, your bloodstream, it will just get all the water that it can to make more urine, because that's what a diuretic does. Why do we do that? Because that sounds horrible, okay? Well, we know that drug testing is done by urine samples, and drugs need a certain percentage concentration in the urine to be detected, okay, via drug testing. So if you're using diuretics and it dilutes the urine, okay, it will mask the drug, right? So for example, you look at human growth hormone, which was on the previous slide, screen, whatever. That's natural in the body. If you test my urine right now, it will say I've got human growth hormone, because guess what? I'm a human, so do you, right? But it's going to be extremely low percentage in my urine, like 0.0000 something. If you test somebody who's taking human growth hormone and they don't take a diuretic, their urine will show a very strong concentration of HGH, and they'll be like, well, you're taking drugs, you're banned, see you later. So athletes will take diuretics, it makes them produce more urine. So instead of them having a high concentration of HGH in their urine, now because they're producing a lot of urine, they're going to be a low concentration, and therefore the drug tester will test it and they'll be like, well, yep, you're not taking drugs, continue on, see you later. So yeah. However, as I did say before, diuretics obviously are going to lead to like chronic dehydration of the body, heart attack because there's no fluid in your blood, stroke, once again, hypothermia because you can't cool yourself down, and death, right? Diuretics are actually really nasty. The second one the syllabus says we need to go through is alcohol. Well, guess what? And this is, you're all going to have an aha moment. Actually, you probably won't because you're only in year 12 and most of you haven't started drinking alcohol yet. But like, if you watch this video next year, when you're all 18, you'll probably have tried alcohol at some point and you watch this bit again, you'll be like, oh, I get it, right? Alcohol is a diuretic, all right? This is why alcohol consumption leads to increased urine production. So a lot of the time when you consume alcohol, what will happen is your body will start to stimulate. After your very first drink, your body will start to stimulate urine production, and you don't need to go to the toilet yet. And then all of a sudden, at some point throughout the day or night, when you've had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 drinks, you'll be like, I've got to go to the toilet. And you go to the toilet, you urinate, and then like pretty much on the dot every 30, 45 minutes after that, you need to urinate again and urinate again and urinate again. Because if you keep consuming alcohol, you're going to keep stimulating urine production because it's a diuretic. Therefore, fast forward 12 hours, you go to sleep and you wake up and you've got like really bad headache and you feel horrible, and like you would know these things as what we call a hangover. Hangovers are very simply dehydration. That's it. You were dehydrated because you took a diuretic drug and now your body is suffering because of it. All right? So obviously if you like rewind back 12 hours, what a healthy person would do is, 1, not binge drink, because binge drinking is really bad, but 2, you would consume a glass of water or 2 in between your alcoholic drinks to stay hydrated, and therefore you won't wake up the next day feeling like rubbish. Anyway, moving on. Alcohol can also lead to other things such as kidney failure, liver failure, and depression, because we know it's a depressant drug, along with the side effects related to diuretics themselves. All right, we've got 1 dash to go. All right, so our last dash, benefits and limitations of drug testing. So we're going through the testing procedures first. Drug testing is usually done via a urine sample, okay? The testing can be random, so they can just show up one day at training or on competition days and say, hey, we're here to test athlete X, Y, and Z. The testing can be based off results, so athletes are generally aware of this prior to competition, but they'll say anyone who places in the top 10 will be drug tested. Or, in a lot of sports, drug testing is mandatory, all right? So for you to enter this competition, you need to agree to having a drug test. Now this bit I've underlined. The tester must visibly see urine leave the athlete's urethra and enter the sample bag, all right? So it's not good enough for an athlete to like stand here with a sample bag and the tester stand behind them and they see like the stream of urine between the legs from the back. No. They've got to like watch it coming out and make sure it goes in that bag. Like, that's traumatic, especially for young athletes, all right? You are forced to go through that procedure. You may never want to participate in your sport again, okay? You've just turned something from being like a lifelong dream into something that you never ever want to do, purely because of this. And you may be doing the right thing and not taking drugs, which is a limitation in itself, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's talk about the benefits of drug testing, all right? Drug testing ensures fair competition. It ensures that the winner is a legitimate winner, all right? That is the idea behind drug testing. If you win, you should win on your skill and your merit and your training and your preparation and your dedication and all those great things, not because you use drugs, all right? Another benefit of drug testing is that it keeps the athlete safe and healthy, right? We know throughout this video I've gone through many side effects and a lot of time leading to permanent injury or death. So by drug testing, you are actually protecting the athlete from themselves. So even if they're just thinking, oh, I might want to take some anabolic steroids, if drug testing is a deterrent, all right, to stop them from doing it, then I'll write that up. You should probably write that down too, deterrent. If drug testing is therefore a deterrent from them taking the drugs and they stay healthy and they don't die from a heart attack or a stroke or whatever, then that was a good thing. And the other benefit of drug testing is that there are actually consequences for positive tests. It's not just like you get a little slap on the wrist and naughty, all right? And I've gone through those consequences earlier in this video, such as temporary bans from their sports, permanent bans from their sports, especially for repeat offenders, loss of income, loss of sponsorship, reputation, etc. All right. There are many benefits of drug testing. But there are some limitations and problems with drug testing, all right? And we'll go through that now. So first of all, it's expensive. It's expensive to hire the testing staff, and it's also expensive to utilize the specialized equipment. And remember, because the WADA list is constantly being updated, that testing specialized equipment also needs to be constantly updated to make sure that it's testing for the right things, all right? Now this point here, the expensive point, ties directly into this point. So I'll go through that next. Is that because it's expensive, And like random people don't just fund that money. The money's got to come from somewhere to pay for all that. Well, guess what? It's added directly to the sport itself. So costs are added to sports registration, participation, and entry fees. So that means as an athlete, if I wanted to enter a competition, I need to pay a registration fee for that, and potentially an entry fee for that specific event, right? Now, if I'm an athlete who doesn't take drugs, that's unfair. Why should I have to pay like thousands of dollars extra just so that you can test some people who are doing the wrong thing when I'm doing the right thing? So you can see like the argument there, right? So it's unfair from a cost perspective, right? By the way, the reason that you can see like the benefit limitations is a common question you get in the HSC. Drug testing, obviously we've gone through it already. A limitation is it's invasive and traumatic. Mandatory drug testing also removes athlete freedom and choice, all right? So a lot of the time, instead of it's being like, hey, are you comfortable getting a drug test? And an athlete will say, yes, I'm comfortable getting a drug test, test me. Or they might say, no, I'm not comfortable getting a drug test. And that no, I'm not comfortable getting a drug test may not be because they're trying to hide the use of drugs. It may be personal reasons, it might be religious reasons. But because it's a mandatory test now, your freedom is removed. So it's either you get tested or you cannot participate in your sport or competition. And that's unfair too. Another limitation is that you cannot possibly test everyone on an international scale. So they can't just say, right, all cyclists across the world are now being tested. It'd be way too expensive. No one would ever cycle again. It's just too much money, all right? And the last limitation I've got here is inconsistent requirements at various levels, which is also something that comes up in the HSC sometimes. So you look at local competitions versus professional competitions. So someone who performs really well at their local competition, their local sports meet or whatever, may be doing so because they're using drugs and they're not drug tested, right? So they can just be like the local superstar. But then the instant like scouts come along and they're like, oh, hey, you performed really well. We want you in our team. And they go along to the team, they get sponsorships and all this kind of stuff. And then 6 months down the track, they're drug tested and it's found out, well, actually you were just good because you were being drug tested, and they get all that stuff removed from them, then they have to pay it all back. And yeah, all the things I've gone through in this video. Right, that's the benefits of limitation of drug testing, and overall that is the end of our use of drugs video. Thanks, bye.